welcome one and all to the inaugural CubeCon, which is an event that we have been very patiently or impatiently, in the case of
long time coming, Justin.
Been waiting for almost 3 years. I am Justin Parnell.
I'm Andy Mangold,
joined by the host of the Lucky Paper Radio Cube podcast.
One of the hosts. We had a reason to do about this. There are two hosts, not host co-hosts. This whole thing.
As we both know, I'm also a podcaster.
Oh yeah.
Who talks first?
I speak first, and I edit the show, and I produce the show. But you know.
So the host of the Lucky Paper Radio podcast, Andy Mangold, and we are going to be here today to present the Team Wisconsin versus Team Wizards of the Coast 3v3 team draft.
You're a big team draft fan, I assume, Justin?
Love me a team draft.
I do too.
Absolutely love it.
The only way to play with 6 people, as far as I'm concerned, it fixes the matchups. If you try to draft with 6 and just pair up by rankings, you get some people paired up and down. In a team draft, we're going to be having each team has 3 players, obviously, and they're going to be sitting interlocked, right? So on each side of the player drafting is going to be a player from the opposite team. And then the way it works is, at the end of the day, all that matters is the team that wins more games, not what your actual personal record is.
That's right. So the goal is you want to get to 5 match wins before the other team, and you're ultimately playing 9 matches because you're playing essentially round robin with the other team.
Yep.
So we have 3 people on Team Wisconsin, and they're each going to play each other person on Team Wizards.
And this changes the dynamic of a regular draft, right? Because I think most experienced players know that hate drafting generally not advisable in an 8-person pod, right? Maybe you make one player's deck a little bit worse, but also you're giving up a pick of your own, and you're even going to play them. You might not play them. But here, this is a zero-sum game. If you make the person that you're passing to's deck worse, that is better for your team.
Absolutely. And not only that, with a 3v3 draft, there's just less cards. So all of those picks are actually a little bit more impactful because you're going to be specifically taking stuff away from someone else that will actively be able to utilize it. Half the draft is on your team, half the draft's on the other team.
But something I found team drafting non-powered cubes is that I actually feel like the hate drafting element isn't as relevant as it is in retail limited, right? Because in retail limited, you have a big span of power levels between your Angel of Wrath and your, replaceable D-level common or whatever in a standard set. So taking that really powerful card is going to have a big effect on the person you're passing to's deck. In a non-powered cube, all the cards are playable. There's a lot of good cards. How much can you really hurt them? But we are not playing a non-powered cube, folks.
What we have today is a cube that we are going to be using today for the team draft and the cube that is going to decide the ultimate champion of CubeCon as we get into the traditional event. And that is what we're calling the Cube, which is the Wizards of the Coast Vintage Magic Online Cube.
Very close to it.
A close approximation of it. Probably one from a few iterations ago, but we have the list right here. And this is not a normal cube, or as far as what you were talking about, it definitely is one with power and all the fixins.
And I was going to say hate drafting might be relevant again with that power, but really you're not hate drafting. You're just going to play the power in your deck. You're just going to draft it. That's a regular draft pick right there.
Absolutely. So we have 6 drafters. Now, these are all people that you know if you're Cube fans. So we have, I will introduce what is my team, Team Wizards of the Coast.
We've each claimed a team.
Yeah. We've each claimed a team.
Yep. Adopted them.
And you have adopted Team Wisconsin,
yep,
despite having not been in the state, but for less than 24 hours for the first time.
It's my second day in Wisconsin, but I'm already a member of the team.
I can appreciate that. So
go Wisconsin! Woo!
So we have
someone get this man out of here.
We have
security.
An intruder in the booth, Jonathan Brostoff, who is going to be one of the drafters. But anyway, we're not 2 Team Wisconsin. I'm trying to butt in. Team Wizards of the Coast. So we have my longtime good friend, initial creator of Commander Versus and Magic the Gathering Arena card maker extraordinaire, David McDarby. We have a man who needs no introduction, Gavin Verhey, a senior designer at Wizards of the Coast, and someone that is often kind of behind the, I was going to say behind the camera, but I guess we're all behind the camera.
Yeah.
But kind of behind the scenes, in Gwen Decker, the
honorary wizard for the day.
Honorary wizard for the day, creator of Cube Cobra, a tool that I would say is not a stretch to say that almost every cube designer uses and loves.
It is the cube management tool. For those of us that aren't using spreadsheets like you insane animal, yes, it is the one way to manage your cube.
Yeah, Team Excel here.
Yeah. Yep. Meanwhile, Team Wisconsin, we have Jay Bro, who just popped in the back of the feed here. Jay Bro, for those of you who may not know, oftentimes the trophy leader on the Magic Online Cube whenever it goes online, a streamer over on his own stream. We also have prolific streamer Caleb Durward, a fantastic player who I understand claimed the Cube Crown of Wisconsin last night from J-Bro.
That is true. I was a witness to that. It's
Okay.
legally true.
So that happened. And we also have, just the last player on the team, it's Sam Black. You may have heard of him. I think he's a pro player or something. He should be doing pretty okay as well.
An expert drafter. And who we're going to start with is, in fact, the trophy leader.
All right.
And the Cube King of Wisconsin.
That's who we're watching in the draft here.
And that's my good friend Caleb Durward. Although my mortal enemy today, and he's going to be passing to David McDarby, who I expect to obliterate Caleb later in the draft.
All right.
That's my expectation. So I think we are ready to go. We're going to send it back down to the floor and see if we can get our drafters ready. It looks like they have packs in front of them. I see some table talk happening between Caleb and McDarby. I can only imagine what they're saying. They were probably regaling the tale of when they played for the first time on the SCG Tour many, many moons ago. Caleb doesn't really know what they were playing. Caleb just remembers that he beat McDarby. That's all he knows.
So, I mean, what else matters, Justin? What else matters truly at the end of the day?
Yeah, and exactly. And we are going to see the opposite happen today when they ultimately meet up.
It's going to be a very interesting team draft.
Yes. So, looks like they're getting going. We have the packs in front of them, and
we've been waiting 3.5 years for this draft to start. Basically.
I've been waiting. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life. For this draft to start. So we have a beautiful, and I don't know if you can quite see it on coverage, but we have a poster that was made for this draft, the grudge match, and it is a man made of cheese versus a very powerful wizard, obviously representing the power level disparity between the two teams.
We can all agree that cheese is better than wizards. One is real and one is not.
I've never eaten a wizard.
Yeah, well,
cheese is delicious. I got to give you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 packs 15, right? We're doing regular pack size here.
Regular old pack size.
Regular pool size at the end of the day.
And something we want to watch out for, as always, is to make sure when you're cubing to not accidentally pick from a pack that hasn't been.
That's pretty important. I thought you were going to say maybe pick some power. I spy a little bit of power in this pack.
Speaking of which, and Caleb had
that gleaming beam of light is actually not.
That's actually not a glare.
Yeah,
the card was illuminating itself.
It's glowing.
As the pick.
It radiates gamma energy.
So love to see someone that we're featuring on the draft immediately open with a piece of power. You know what?
So this is not really a pick here, right? I mean, it's time walk and it's not even close. Nothing can hold a candle to that card in this pack.
Yeah. Well, we had a Courser Crew fix in there too.
Pretty good. That card gains life, and life is how you lose the game eventually.
Exactly. So Caleb going back to the well to try to make it interesting for coverage, maybe.
Yeah,
but
not much interesting to say about this pack. I think you take the time walk. I agree with Caleb Durward.
I mean, I think he'll figure it out. This is a rough start for Caleb, but potentially able to recover.
Yes, I mean, you hate to see it.
Yeah, I hate to see it.
Really rough, dead pack like that.
So last night, as J-Bro and Caleb were deciding who was the Cube champion of Wisconsin, I walked into the living room, and they were arguing over how many extra turns Caleb had on the stack.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing to argue about, I find. I think it's a good sign for Caleb if they're trying to figure that out.
So Caleb on his second pack, what are we looking at here?
I don't know. I'm seeing a Counterspell. I'm seeing an Urza Saga. I'm seeing a Teferi here pulled to the front. Teferi, classic Groaner. Eternal Witness, maybe not a high pick in a vacuum, but we do already have a Time Walk. So that Eternal Witness basically becomes a copy of Time Warp.
It does.
With a combination of the Time Walk there. And it looks like that's what we're going to be picking.
Is going
unless Caleb is trolling us, which he could do. He could fake us out a little bit.
I don't believe that he is.
Okay.
I believe that he has decided he is absolutely snapping off this Eternal Witness. He wants to Time Walk as many times as he can.
Now, you see Caleb showing us some other cards in the pack that I think he was maybe considering or near the top of the pack for him. He's going to be trying to figure out what David, who he's passing to, is drafting, correct?
I don't think he cares. He's got a Time Walk and an Eternal Witness. I think he's into what he is doing.
What shall I be beating in round 2 is what he's saying to himself right now.
Caleb trying to look at what he could potentially be drafting on the wheel here. And again, that is
an important factor. It's a smaller wheel.
Smaller
trip around the table.
That's right. Only 6 people, so you're only passing to 5 other players before you get it back. Pack 3. Well, we have the fixing land that he wants, but
now Time Twister is actually a piece of power. Little known fact.
Legally.
Yes, legally it's a piece of power. So a lot of potential power level there, but I am a man that loves to eat my vegetables in Cube. For me, I'm taking this fixing land and just making sure I can cast my spells. But
Absolutely.
definitely some competition here from Time Twister rather, and I'm seeing Venser also pulled to the front of this pack as a potential consideration.
Now he's going with the Twister.
What do you think? What do you think of this pick?
I would take I think I would have taken the Venser.
Oh, the Venser. Okay.
I think I would have taken the Venser because I'm 100% sure I'm going to be playing the blue cards.
Oh yeah, you're playing blue,
right?
You're definitely playing blue. You know what else is blue in that pack though? Is that land? That land also blue.
I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I probably would have taken the breeding pool.
I'm trying
to make it interesting, but I would have taken the land.
I prioritize lands a little too highly, maybe. I think it's actually a hole in my game, but I just so dislike losing the game to Mana Screw that I'm willing to maybe give up a little bit of power to make sure I get to cast my spells. If I'm going to go down, I want to go down casting my spells, you know?
And I think one of the more powerful cards that Caleb is passing, he put right on the front, which is the Wandering Emperor.
Yeah, that is definitely a very powerful card. New Planeswalker we saw printed in Neon Dynasty. Powerful Planeswalker in this pack too. Ooh boy. So we are heading down a potentially very degenerate line with this deck if we see this this time spiral snapped off here by Caleb. We're just looking at a bunch of unfair stuff, maybe trying to again count how many turns we have on the stack.
I gotta ask, which card do you think is more powerful, Time Spiral or Time Twister? In Cube.
Oh,
in this Cube.
I think Time Spiral.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's Time Spiral.
Now you just drafted the Twister, but we also have a Nissa Who Shakes the World here. Ironically, you really want Nissa with that Time Spiral?
Yeah, a Nissa and Time Spiral is in fact a combo. Now this is, I mean, what pick are we on at this point? This is
pick 4.
Pick 4, okay.
It is not unreasonable that this is a pretty powerful pack.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a chance to maybe get that Spiral back. It's a powerful card, but it's a card that only specific decks want. It's not like any old deck playing blue is going to be happy to jam a Time Spiral in their deck.
So Caleb firmly on blue-green.
And now we have a way to actually win the game with Nissa. We had all these cards that let us take extra turns, you know, buy back the card that takes extra turns, and now I got a way to actually close it out. So Caleb may be regretting that breeding pool, and especially when we're looking at Verdant Catacombs, would have been a nice pickup with that breeding pool. That's where I love eating my vegetables. Though I gotta say, I see one of my favorite cards in this pack, which is Portent. I am so glad to see this card back in the Vintage Cube. You know, it's essentially worse Ponder. You know, you're gonna draw that card on your opponent's next upkeep instead of on your own turn, but you know, if you're playing at instant speed, if you got counter spells, or if it's turn 1 and you have an mana spend anyway, that's a pretty good impersonation of it.
Or maybe the person that drafted that Teferi cast it on your opponent's turn. It's an instant.
I love targeting my opponent with the Portent. That's the secret mode that is extra feel bad. I have a lot of people scoop to Portent targeting you.
And we're going to go with the fixing. The vegetables coming up.
Now, what do you think the chances are we get that breeding pool back around? And if we don't, what does that mean for Caleb in this draft?
I think he's going to have to work harder than he's thinking, not getting the fixing early, because he is firmly in a...
Ooh. It's getting dirty in here, spicy. Justin. It's getting dirty.
So we have a high tide. Caleb did not draft that Time Spiral.
This is where the hate drafting being relevant in team draft is going to come up, because every player at the table, I believe, has seen, if I'm counting correctly, has seen the high tide and now the Time Spiral.
They will have now seen the Time Spiral.
Yeah, so we're not taking the high tide here. It looks like Caleb is going to play it a little more safe. But it's reasonable to think that if you see those things going around and you're on a team and you see a pack that doesn't have anything great for you, you might want to make sure that your opposing team does not get that combo of high tide into Time Spiral, which of course is pretty degenerate.
And imagine if you have that plus a Nissa, and
oh boy, that's a lot of mana.
It's a lot of mana.
We're gonna be getting those dice out, count the mana in mana pools. All right, we're back to our first pack now. So we've been around the table once. Courser of Kufix still in the pack. I know if that pleases you.
And it might be pleasing Caleb here.
It is on color.
It's looking like it's going to be between 3 cards, Wall of Roots, which appears to be the pick.
Yep, I like this here.
Courser, which is, we can all agree, slightly more powerful than Time Walk, but, you know, going in a different direction for this draft.
Yeah, we're not trying to do the fair thing here, I don't think. I don't think we're going to be trying to outvalue our opponent with just playing some extra lands off the top.
And just trying to get out this Nissa likely as quickly as possible, as that is currently the way to end the game. Now...
Oh, no respect for Urza Saga, I gotta say. You see a Life from the Loam and a Crop Rotation pulled to the front here. Crop Rotation, really high ceiling if you have some sort of land combo going on, but if you're just using it to fix your mana, maybe not as appealing. Also, maybe a Grave Titan in the mix. We're not really committed to our colors at this point, still halfway through pack 1.
Great Titan is an incredibly powerful finisher.
That will end a game. That'll end a game.
Caleb would have taken that crop rotation had we picked up Dark Depths in the last pack, but
we see a Life from the Loam here. What do you think of a Life from the Loam in a deck like this?
Well, currently, largely does nothing.
We do have one fetch land.
We have one fetch land. That's how we get started, right? So, you're what Primal Command.
Okay, Primal Command. That's what I'm less familiar with here.
That is and Caleb realizing, not quite knowing if I believe this was the breeding pool pack.
I think so.
So we're not seeing the breeding pool come back. But
now, if you're Caleb, are you worried that you have another blue-green drafter at the table, either cutting you from your deck, or maybe worst case scenario, you and your teammate are in the same colors, and you're going to be knocking the power level of both your decks simultaneously?
And that is the nightmare if you're splitting an archetype, or even just a color combination. Sometimes that's all that it takes.
You can argue another good reason to eat those vegetables is to send a clear sign that you want that card back. This is the pack that had the Time Spiral in it, which also did not come back. So somebody at this table could have a High Tide Time Spiral, which is definitely going to put their deck in a similar space as the deck that wants Time Twister and those sorts of cards.
And Caleb going with the gigantic annihilating Eldrazi, clearly trying to ramp as hard as possible. So Caleb potentially could be just continuing to look for more ramp, which is probably going to be the case.
Get that port, Caleb. Get that port.
Yeah.
I don't know Caleb's personal take on Port, and maybe he's taking it begrudgingly, wishing it was a Ponder or a Preordained, but I gotta say this card puts in work.
Sometimes when I think about Port, and I'm like, you know what? At least it's not Serum Visions.
I love Serum Visions too. I will never kick a 1-mana cantrip out of bed. The pack's starting to wind down now.
Yeah, we're ending on pack 1, and this is going to be the dregs for Caleb. Essentially, just picking cards that are in the color of what he has drafted in blue and green so far. What is the worst cantrip you'll play?
The worst cantrip I'll play. I mean, I play Sleight of Hand in my 360 cube, so
I like Sleight of Hand.
You like it more than Serum Visions?
Yeah, I like Sleight of Hand more than Serum Visions.
Okay, interesting.
I want to look before I draw.
It does feel worse.
I want to look.
But that turn 1 Serum Visions is pretty good. You get your next couple turns lined up. Lodestone Golem, probably not going to see play here, just to fill out the rest of this pack.
It's true. So really,
see Sleight of Mind pulled up on the card thing here. That's not what we're talking about with Sleight of Hand, but close. Cool art.
So, Andy, what are we looking for pack 2 for Caleb?
Boy,
Reading Pool's gone. That would be a high
I guess
choice.
We're looking for a tropical island would be the number one thing we're looking for. That would be great. We did get that crop rotation real late here, which if we do end up doing some Life from the Loam value stuff, crop rotation, another way to put a land in the graveyard. I don't think we're getting there yet, but we could potentially see that be playable. How do you feel about this deck after first pack?
Caleb hanging his hat on 2 pieces of power and an Vintage Cube that's got to feel good, but there's a lot of wheel spinning going on so far. Now,
there was definitely some conflict in that pack.
There was.
Not getting the High Tide, not getting the Time Spiral. There's somebody else doing the unfair thing. Maybe Caleb is thinking, I need to lean a little more into what is kind of the classic mono-green ramp archetype you see in Vintage Cube with this little splash for the broken blue cards, which I think is an okay space to be.
And this is what Caleb is showing us, what he is currently planning on including in his deck at current time. So we have 4 blue cards, Mole Drifter, the 2 pieces of power, a good old Port.
And Port.
Yeah.
I'll be singing the praises of Port.
Can't leave that one away. Yeah, unsurprisingly, Life from the Loam,
we see that in the sideboard right now.
It's in the sideboard right now, but that's something that can change pretty quickly once you pick up a couple of extra portions that you might want to get some value with.
Is it just more fetch lands you're looking for to be excited about a Life from the Loam, or do you look for any sort of self-mill strategy?
In Caleb's deck, I think I'm just looking for more fetch lands, which means it's probably not going to make it.
Probably
I just don't know if that's going to be worth a deck slot.
Fetch lands are going to be high picks in this pod no matter what seat you're in. So
it's going to be tough because Caleb is looking like he's going to be trying to cast that Kozilek, which is not played nicely with Life.
That is true. Also worth noting, we're only seeing 6 players worth of pods. What do we got going on here? Only 6 players worth of pods. We got the risk guard coming on. The draft's getting serious.
Yeah.
6 players worth of packs here means that we are seeing a smaller amount of this 540 card cube. So entirely possible that tropical island is not even in this pool of cards that we're opening.
That's true. You could say exactly half the cube.
Sure. I'm an art school major. I don't know math.
All right. So back on.
We got more regrowth effects. We got more wheels.
Back on the wheels. So
I heard you like wheels. I put some wheels on your wheels so you can spin while you're spinning. Instead, we're looking at maybe the spell version of Eternal Witness.
I don't know. I don't think the Caleb's gonna draft this regrowth. I know he put it. I know he put it in the front. I know he put it in the front.
A little bit.
I know he put it in the front. I don't think he's gonna do it.
We also see a Mind Twist kind of in the mix here, and potentially a Thran Dynamo. I think that regrowth is gonna be the pick.
He's taking the regrowth. Caleb is. I'm gonna take as many turns as possible.
I mean,
he wants to get that time walk back.
Take turns. Take up those planeswalkers is a pretty good way to win a game of Magic, I hear.
So, Caleb, with 2 pieces of power already in this Vintage Cube 3v3 team draft, and wants to cast them as much as possible.
Gotta say, not maybe the power you're most excited about. Time Walk's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Time Twister, maybe not as much. We haven't seen any fast mana. No Moxen, no Lotus, Soul Ring, nothing like that has been in these packs so far.
I would say it's likely someone's seen some.
Someone's probably seen a little bit, just mathematically.
All right, we have a couple of excellent ramp pieces.
Fast Bond and Wheels.
Do you think Caleb is excited about?
I think Caleb might be a little excited about that Fast Bond. Fast Bond and Wheels, pretty fun together. You get to refresh your whole hand, dump all those lands you draw, cast more spells, keep going.
I love what Caleb's. This is a really fun pack because every green card he passed by was his pick until he saw the next one.
Exactly, yeah, just getting better and better as the pack goes.
He was like, okay, so we have a Kadama's Reach. That's pretty good. Okay, we have a Cradle. That's pretty
good.
Now,
it's definitely a little painful to pass this Cradle here. You have crop rotation. You're in a big ramp deck. You're likely going to have a decent amount of small creatures by the time this draft is over.
Potentially.
So
we have seen none.
That's true. We haven't seen a single mana elf, I don't think.
We have one, and it's Yorga Tree Speaker, which is getting ready to get passed to the right.
Okay, here we go. Now, what are the chances that Cradle comes back around? I imagine slim to none.
I would say slim to none.
Yeah.
But, Yorga Tree Speaker, incredibly powerful. Some people have called it the Green Sol Ring.
That's a big statement.
I've said it.
Big statement.
Me, I'm talking about myself.
Are you a big Yorga Tree Speaker fan?
I love a Yorga Tree Speaker.
Interesting. I feel like that's one of the most polarizing cards in the Cube world.
High risk, high reward, my friend.
Pays off. Ooh. We see another potential big green card. Now, I know you believe Channel to be a trap in most cubes.
I think Channel's a trap.
It's the kind of card that requires a very specific deck. You need a lot of colorless mana pips in order to really get the most out of Channel. And then if you draft your whole deck and build it around that card, but you don't see it in every single game, it can be kind of rough to have your Channel hands with a lot of green mana symbols in the top right.
Caleb is passing a Sylvan Library and a Euro. Both cards I think are more powerful than Channel, in my personal opinion.
would definitely be my pick here personally. It's definitely a little more fair than what we're otherwise doing, but we've got that Life from Loam. We can start milling cards over, flipping into that Earl. The deck could have an out to play against the more aggressive decks maybe if life total is a concern. But Caleb is not worried. Caleb is not worried about his life total. I'm representing Team Wisconsin, so I'm going to say that is not a trap. That is a brilliant pick by a brilliant mind.
And you know what I'm going to say as representing Team Wizards? I'm glad Caleb drafted that Channel.
Okay, great. We're both very happy that Caleb drafted that Channel.
Now, you know what? Make me wrong, Caleb. Find another Eldrazi. Find a Karn Liberated. Find something that is slammed down on turn 2 of that Channel. But you know what? I don't think he's going to do it.
Here we see Sakura Tribe Elder, Ignoble Hierarch, potentially a Torrential Gearhulk if you want to go really deep on taking extra turns. That one's quite expensive, though. Shark Typhoon, one of my personal favorite cards.
I think Shark Typhoon's actually really good in this deck. He's got extra turn cards. He's got some,
also not unreasonable to cast the front side of Shark Typhoon in this deck, which is, I think, not seen quite as often. It's just cycling and get a big shark, draw a card. But that could be a real option here.
I think it is a very legitimate. I actually think Caleb is going to take this Shark Typhoon.
I would argue Caleb might be most excited to technically kill people with that Time Walk by making sharks with the Time Walk over and over again.
That's what I mean.
Then you really are actually killing them with Time Walk, which is a thrill.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pass the turn. Oh, how can I possibly die to Caleb's Time Walk plus regrowth from his Eternal Witness? Oh, you have a 7/7 shark?
Every turn is a shark.
Love a Shark Typhoon.
One of my favorite Cube cards printed in the past couple of years, for sure.
I have to. We have a Palancron. I think
Palancron's still in the pack. Somebody has that High Tide. We know not who. Maybe they're not planning on playing it. Maybe they hate drafted it. But we still see that Palancron in the pack. That is a combo with High Tide with enough lands in play. You get to make infinite mana, assuming your opponent doesn't have any interaction.
Now, it also could be infinite mana had you had a Nissa and a Breeding Pool.
Yes.
And a Tropical Island.
Yes. Tropical Island is what I really love to see in one of these packs.
That has to be the highest possible pick.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, well, I mean, it's going to be really painful to take that tropical island over a Lotus. Do you do that? You receive Finale of Devastation, Green Sun Zenith at home coming out to play.
Yep. But, you know, Tropical Island is likely, well, I would say potentially not going to be as high of a pick for the rest of the table as Black Lotus is. So you're more likely to see that getting passed through. So maybe you're just hoping you don't open on it. All right.
We have Botanical Sanctum at the front there.
Sanctum, and that is a blue-green land.
It's a blue-green land, not the one you want, but it's something.
But we also have an Avenger of Zendikar.
How do you feel about that card in the Year of Our Lord 2022?
Makes a lot of creatures.
Oh, it does do that.
But I think Caleb correctly realizing currently has no fixing.
If I'm in Caleb's seat right now, I'm thinking, I got plenty of ways to win the game.
I got plenty of ways.
I got a lot of win conditions in the middle of Pack 2, and what I need to make sure I can do is actually cast my spells. But again, I'm overly conservative, perhaps, in that regard.
Well, you know, I love to draft lands, personally. 2-color deck. Not splashing anything, has no aims to splash anything. He's not taken any cards that are even, I feel like, splashable in his deck.
Yeah,
so,
we're looking like we're pretty clean 2 colors at this point right now.
Pretty clean 2 colors.
Now, 2 cards that Caleb was eyeing before have come back around. Echo of Eons,
specifically,
and Thran Dynamo.
The card Caleb wanted in his heart, Echo of Eons.
I have the fast bond now, so the wheel looking even more appealing, perhaps. I wonder how much Caleb is kicking himself about not taking that high tide.
I would say a reasonable amount. The rest of the deck has presented itself, and we don't have that time spiral either.
Now, the one factor about the high tide we haven't discussed is that you need a lot of islands. We're not going to get a blue-green island, maybe, and we are a pretty heavy green deck, so it's potentially that even if that card works so well with Time Spiral, even if it's potentially a combo with Palancron, you need enough islands in play specifically to make that a combo with Palancron.
And we've passed Palancron, and I don't think that was even in consideration. We're on the wheel.
Here's your Jiraga.
Take, slam that Tree Speaker.
I'm not sure there's much else to compete with this in this pack, personally.
So notably, the other 2 green cards, Cradle, which we expected to be on, but Kadama's Reach, also gone.
That is an interesting one for sure. I'm noticing in this pack a lot of aggressive red cards.
Yeah.
Do we think maybe that the aggressive red deck is being underdrafted at this table? Perhaps nobody's going to be playing that?
Well, we have arguably two of the very best aggressive red cards, certainly Goblin Guide and Sulphurous Vortex. Sulphurous Vortex, a card that some people are simply unable to beat based on what they draft.
Yeah.
Probably something that would be quite good against Caleb with his multiple time walks.
Dreadhorde Arcanist in this pack, obviously not a consideration for Caleb, but definitely a favorite card of mine. I found that you can actually make it work in Cube better than you might think. Now, we see a Tendrils of Agony here, not really passing up on much for our deck. Elvish Reclaimer, it's not really the kind of card we're playing in our deck here, I don't think. We don't have that many fetch lands to turn it into a reasonable beater. Also, why are we attacking with a 3/4? We're not doing that. We're going much bigger.
And here's where we have to remind ourselves this is a team draft. You're not going to use that Reclaimer.
Yep.
Life in the Loam's in your not going to play pile. But it feels bad to pass a really late Tendrils and then lose to it.
That's true. And we could see that Tendrils come into play, maybe. I mean, you have to pick up quite a few pieces of mana fixing for me to be excited about it. But with all those ways to buy cards back, maybe all it takes is a single Manamorphose. Is that card even in this list? What a great question.
Manamorphose, I bet that it is. So we have Caleb taking Horizon Canopy, which is...
Manamorphose is in the list. I can't confirm.
One tiny little step closer to that Life from the Loam being an option.
Craterhoof, not really a Craterhoof deck, despite being a big green deck, I would say. We are lacking in these small creatures to make that a really reliable win condition, especially compared to some other ways we have to win the game right now.
Well, you know, we could have just... We have the Yorga Tree Speaker.
True.
We could have just not opened. No one could have opened Land War Elves and Friends yet.
Pack 3 could just be nothing but a sea of 1 mana dorks. It's possible.
We got that Finale Devastation.
Finale Devastation is, I mentioned that was Green Sun Zenith at home. Overall, I think it is Green Sun Zenith at home, but it does have that other mode of being a big win condition.
Let me tell you about a little 1-2 punch called Craterhoof Behemoth and Avengers in the card.
Does that one make little tokens?
It sure does. And it's very possible to win the game by playing those 2 cards in sequence. Not that sequence, Avenger into Craterhoof, of course.
That's the one you want to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Gonna get that Thran Dynamo for free, basically. This was a card that Caleb was considering the first 2 times this pack went around the table, or at least bringing it to the front of the pack. We get that on the wheel. That's nice. So how do you feel about this deck now? We're getting to the end of pack 2. We have even more win conditions. We don't have any more mana fixing. which is a little bit alarming.
We do have one more. We have a Botanical Sanctum.
That is true. We got that Botanical Sanctum. You're right.
Arguably the worst mana fixing you want in a ramp deck.
It's pretty rough.
If you could pick a land of 2 colors that has anything on it, one that comes into play tapped later is not what you want. But that's what we're working with, and sometimes when you do not have a lot of options, something you can't even get with Verdant Catacombs, you got to take it.
There's a lot of powerful cards in this deck, no doubt. We got
and Channel.
And there's also Channel. It's true. Now, Channel, that's a combo with Finale of Devastation. That basically says win the game, pretty much, right?
Is that a combo?
I mean, you do need 4 green mana. You need 4 green mana, but you have a wall of roots for that.
4 green mana. Oh yeah, yeah.
It's some kind of combo. The cards can be combined, and I believe that makes it a combo if I have my definitions correct.
Well, it's in my experience, it's very difficult to combo cards that are in your main deck with cards that are in your sideboard.
That's true. That is true.
And that's where I think that the channel should be headed. And then shortly after that, into the trash can.
It's actually funny. My friend Daniel is here, and he once did, in fact, tear a channel up and throw it into the trash can. And so we say channel trash can in our play group quite often.
See?
He opened it in a Eternal Masters draft, whatever Master set it was in, and then was dismayed to find out he can't play it in his commander decks. So torn up, right in the garbage it went.
Yeah. All right. So what would be your top 3 cards?
Tropical Island, Tropical Island, Tropical Island.
Excellent.
Maybe a couple more fetch lands would be nice too.
To really lean
we'll
on
take
the Tropical
a
Islands.
Lotus. We'll take a Lotus. We're not gonna pass a Lotus. I don't think.
You think about an Ancestral Recall or 2.
Now again, we're doing a team draft here, so maybe we should be a little more conscious of what the people around us are drafting. How do you feel about the cards we've seen in this pack and what you think the rest of this table might be packing?
I think there is another specifically blue-green drafter.
I think that's absolutely true.
And I bet that it's on Caleb's team.
That's going to be a little bit of a feel bad when you get to the end of the draft. You start comparing your decks with your teammates. And all right, here we got quite a few cards. We got that shiny from the Vault foil, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Sylvan Caryid, and another Eldrazi pulled into the front of the pack.
If you're a believer in Channel, you have to take this Ulamog. But Jace, obviously,
it's iconic for a reason.
It's iconic for a reason.
Iconic for a reason, for sure.
You already want fetch lands. That Jace is just going to help with that.
Jace's a pretty good way to get your extra turn engine online by brainstorming every turn of those extra turns to keep finding your regrowths, keep finding ways to get that time walk back if that's the plan. See a Force Negation in the back there. It looks like it's not a consideration here for Caleb. I'm not seeing much reactive stuff in this deck. It seems like Caleb is going to be trying to pose a threat and hope that threat is enough to overwhelm his opponent.
He's going to be asking the questions. His opponent's going to need to have the answers.
Jace goes in the deck. Passing Ulamog, passing Force Negation, passing Sylvan Caryid hit.
To me, this was a critical moment in the draft, whether you're deciding between being a ramp deck or a channel deck. Caleb choosing correct.
I'm here to defend my team, the team I'm representing, but I got to say I'm with you on that. I think maybe that channel will end up in the sideboard based on how this draft is shaken out. No need to have greens on the at home. We do have Lumbering Falls, I believe that is
that is the
blue-green creature land.
That is the sacrifice land for Modern Horizons.
Oh, okay, sorry, that's Waterlogged Grove.
Waterlogged Grove, yes. And we're choosing between
looks like Signet.
Some Signet.
That's Simic Signet.
Simic Signet. Okay. And
Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
Jace Vryn's Prodigy. You know what Caleb really likes doing? Taking him as many turns as he can with Time Walk. You know what
Jace allows you to do after you flip it? Cast a spell from your graveyard.
He's going to take the Jace. Regardless of whether it's the right pick, he loves casting Time Walk as many times as he possibly can.
This is part of why we play Cube, though, Justin, because it's a format that allows you to do what you love.
It's the main reason we play Cube.
We got a turnabout in that pack that obviously not a consideration here for Caleb, but that is maybe going to find its way to the High Tide Drafter and make for a pretty scary situation. Having seen Time Spiral, having seen High Tide, having seen Palinchron, having seen now Turnabout, pretty happy to have that Tendrils of Agony, even in your sideboard, I would say.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
We got a Garruk Wild Speaker here. Fetch land.
We have a fetch land.
Fetch land that can't
fetch land.
Can't get green yet. And as the packs fly by, we are less and less likely to see that tropical island we want so badly.
Garruk Wildspeaker is. I think that Phyrexian Metamorph is a wildly powerful card.
It's hard for me to say. I don't actually play cubes of this kind very often with these huge 10 and 12 mana threats flying around. And I got to imagine that's a pretty efficient way to just kind of take whatever your opponent did and do it back to them for way less mana.
Or double up yourself if you're, feeling froggy. Especially if after you have Avengers in the car, making another one of those and getting on with it.
Garrick is a great combination with Nissa. It's a nice little 4-5 sequence there. You get to untap those lands, which now tap for 2. Get to do some broken stuff.
If Caleb has it his way, it's a turn 2, turn 3 sequence with Fastball.
That is true.
How many cards in Caleb's main deck do you think we're looking at right now? Because I feel like we are in the 20s.
I am not good at counting. I couldn't tell you. Most of the cards we've seen on color, I think, are pretty playable. There's a few that are probably going to ride the sideboard. I don't think we're playing the Life from Loam right now. I don't think we're playing the Crop Rotation right now. But here we're looking at Archmage's Charm or Merfolk Skydiver, correct? And Merfolk Skydiver, great in an environment with power. So we have an opportunity to steal somebody's Mox, steal somebody's Soul Ring.
As X cannot be 0, so...
Archmage's Charm is a card that I love.
It's not Merfolk Skydiver. We were wrong.
Oh,
It's called something else, but we know what it does. You can kick it, and it takes...
goodness gracious. How embarrassing.
And it takes... All right, we gotta check our...
Check that blue 2-drop slot while I talk a little bit about Archmage's Charm. Archmage's Charm, a fantastic card I would love to be able to cast in this environment, but with so little fixing in our deck, so heavily green, I'm not sure that triple blue is on the menu for this deck.
Thieving Skydiver.
Thieving.
Makes sense.
It is a Merfolk. It's thieving
and
stuff.
It do be thieving.
It do be thieving.
Yeah.
This is, I believe, the last pack we have a chance to see our fixing land in, and it looks like a whiff.
Swing and a miss.
Now, do you even play a Mana Leak in this deck?
No.
You are going to be trying to tap out on your turn, as powerful of a counterspell as that is. Your lone piece of interaction being a counterspell, maybe hard to justify leaving any mana up in this deck unless you are forced to.
Now, Mana Leak, exceptionally good in decks that struggle to represent both of their colors on single lands, which is what Caleb's up to.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, is it good in this particular deck? I think not. I think you are.
I hope to not be in a position where I want to cast Mana Leak with this deck. Like you said, we want to be posing a threat. We want to be asking the questions.
Yeah. Caleb currently has one piece of interaction in his
deck.
And
I don't know if we're going to see that in the main.
Okay, this is actually the last new.
You're right. This is a new pack still. Bolus the Citadel.
We did showing it off, which is really sweet.
Did we see a Tinker earlier, or was that a show and tell?
We did see a Tinker earlier.
Okay. In this pack we are looking at, it looks like Mystical Tutor. Now, again, we have committed hard to this taking extra turns. Line, I don't see us not taking Mystical Tutor here.
I completely agree.
Mystical Tutor is, a worse but a second copy of your Time Walk.
I think Hexshrieker would be a good pickup for this deck, but it's clear what the plan is.
Yeah, we have enough ways to win the game. Let's find that take extra turns card and cast it in as many games as possible.
And if things go wrong, we got the Twister. Go get that.
That's true. Manamorphose is teasing me here a little bit. If we had a couple more of those wheels and gone a little more unfair, I could be talked into a Manamorphose Tendrils line. But
no, Caleb's going to be tempted. We got that Ulamog back around. Sylvan Carroted should be the pick. Okay.
I think we got to see Carroted here. I don't see anything else really being in contention personally.
There's that Ulamog coming back up.
Now, here's a question. I know you are down on Channel. Are there matchups where you want to side into the Channel deck? Maybe you don't start in the main deck. Maybe you don't play all of these big colorless beaters.
Absolutely, I could be playing a cube that has Death Shadow.
Okay, is that the only situation you want to do that in?
No, I probably wouldn't even play it.
Well, it looks like this Ulamog's at the front of the pack. Now, I got to say, one of the things most appealing to me about Carroted here is the mana fixing, even over the ramp.
No, absolutely.
We have blue spells we want to be casting, but we see the Ulamog get taken. Now, Caleb, far better drafter than I, so who am I to question him?
I would say far better. Far better.
You never played with me. I think this is a disrespectfully late Gitaxian Probe.
I love a Gitaxian
We're getting that Simic Signet here, which is kind of nice.
Got to make up for that Sylvan Carroted pick.
Yeah, you got to get your mana somewhere. How much do you value seeing your opponent's hand in Vintage Cube and knowing what they're up to?
Irrelevant.
You think it's irrelevant?
No. You're misunderstanding. Irrelevant because the rest of Gitaxian Probe is worth the pick.
Oh, that is true. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that peak is actually a little more valuable than some players give it credit for.
Oh, absolutely. What I mean is
peak. I would play the cantrip peak.
Yeah. Cantrips are good. I'm with you. I'm not quite on they're all created quite as equally as you.
Oh, they're not equal. Let's not get too twisted. Now, one thing I'm wondering about, seeing the cards that are still in this pack, we see a Mind's Desire still in this pack. Either the actual unfair high tide deck didn't come together, it's just like ending in people's sideboards, or somebody has drafted brilliantly and is wheeling all the cards they want the most.
I believe that someone has it. I think that someone has it.
If they have it, they have galaxy brained this whole pod by not having to take their Mind's Desires very highly and still getting them in their deck.
All of those cards were single-digit picks. So we have
I like Retrofitter Foundry here.
I don't even think it's close as Retrofitter Foundry. We have an Archmage's Charm that will never cast.
I don't see us casting that, at least not in any timeline that we want to be doing it. And again, countering spells, probably not what we're looking to be doing here. Retrofitter Foundry is something I love to be able to have against just an aggro deck. I'm not going to spend any resources. I'm just going to keep making little 1/1 blockers, maybe trading for your Jack of Cups and whatnot.
If you think you might be playing the channel, that at least
Channel Retrofitter Foundry.
Yeah.
That's like pay 18 life, get a couple 4/4s. That's pretty good.
Retrofitter Foundry was one of the a card, because it's from Commander, that I had the pleasure of playing against someone else for the first time rather than playing with it myself the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And quickly, I think everyone realized it was more powerful after we got our hands on it.
Now, I'm a much worse drafter than Caleb here, but I think at this table, in this seat, I might have ended up in some sort of blue Urza Saga Retrofitter Foundry deck, given my predilections. Now, here's an interesting question. Take that Reclamation Stage, it looks like it's the pick.
Mm-hmm.
A little free main deck artifact hate. There are powerful artifacts running around. Nice to be able to have that to get with your Finale of Devastation. Did we end up with the Green Sun Zenith? I don't think we did. We do have the Finale, though.
We did not. We did not end up with a Green Sun Zenith, but we do have a Finale.
Nice to have a little package there, so you can get some relevant stuff.
And I think that we're going to be playing the Finale Devastation. This is a gift. This is a gift. I am disappointed.
We are wrong now. We are wrong because
this is why
Caleb is clearly. This is why he's in that seat and we're over here, because he got that card in the wheel, didn't have to spend a pick on it, got it for free, and
Heartbeat of Spring, an interesting second to last pickup. I don't think we're going to play it.
I don't think so either, but then again,
crazier things have happened.
And a land tax. A card used to be broken in a lot of places. These days, I'm not sure how excited I'd be to play it in a cube like this.
I think everyone agreed with you at every pick along the way. Going 45th overall. All right, now I am very curious to see how this deck comes together, because I feel like
hopefully we'll get to watch his deck building. If that would be great if we get to see what's going on here. But
there are two distinct angles. I would love to be able to see that. We're going to go back to us. Caleb could be leaving the convention center out of the embarrassment of drafting that channel.
Caleb's going to go into the bathroom, stare into the mirror, and say, cast Time Walk. Cast Time Walk. I will cast Time Walk over and over again.
That's the plan.
Daily affirmations about casting Time Walk multiple times is what we're going to get.
So, draft is done. I want to see how many blue-green lands were even available in the draft.
I can't wait to see what the other people at this table have drafted, given some of the cards we saw going around in those packs. Honestly, my biggest story for this draft, I think, is did somebody wheel all those beautiful Storm cards? We opened up, one of the risks of a deck like Storm, a really unfair deck like High Tide in a cube like this, especially when you're only playing with 6 players at 540, is you might just not get the cards for the deck. They might not even be in the pool, regardless of who's taking them. And we saw them open, so that deck could potentially be here.
I think that it is, and the reason that is, those cards were seen fairly early in the
Time Spiral went on the first guard on the table pretty much. We saw it like pick 6, I think, and it didn't come back pick 12 or whatever it would be.
And the
pack 1
and the High Tide was pick 4,
something like that.
It was prior to the Time Spiral. We didn't see this come back around, so it's likely those were taken with single-digit picks.
That's true. Yeah, I think
you're
right.
In your first pack, you giving up a single-digit pick in pack 1 is a lot of direction for your deck, right? And it's not impossible. And oftentimes it can be correct to abandon what you are doing when you're able to switch. But if you have something that, especially in a Vintage Cube, you're operating on an axis that is outside of combat, those picks can be more of a sacrifice if you don't end up taking your deck in that direction.
That is true.
Because you can't transition from, I picked up High Tide and Time Spiral and Mind's Desire type cards and say, you know what, actually I'm going to go to a more traditional deck where I'm going to be playing cards.
I'll play blue-white control with High Tide.
Yeah.
Not always going to work out for you.
Yeah. So I think the deck is there.
Now, what do you think of this deck overall? What's your prediction? What kind of record are we going to see out of Caleb piloting this blue-green deck?
Well, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a 9-0 sweep for Team WotC. So somehow, but for the purpose
are you a little biased here,
living,
Justin?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think for the purpose of living in a fantasy land where things could work out for Caleb.
Let's imagine a parallel universe where Team WotC doesn't stomp Team Wisconsin.
Okay, give me a second.
You think about it a little bit.
Okay.
I think I want to do the over-under on how many extra turns Caleb is going to take over the next 3 matches.
Over the next 3 matches?
Yeah, over-under. Where you drawing the line?
So that could be up to 9 games. Extra turns. I'm going to set the line high.
Okay, where are you setting the bar?
I'm going to
set the bar. I'll go over.
I'm going to say 9.5 extra turns.
Oh, I think over. I think we're taking more extra turns
over.
Than that. We got that mystical tutor. I think we're taking more extra turns than that over these next 3 matches.
What is your line?
I would probably draw the line at like 12, 13 maybe.
12. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. We're going to see.
Okay, so new line, 12.5.
We have Jace, we have Eternal Witness, we have Regrowth, we have Mystical Tutor, we have that Time Walk to tie the whole room together, and I think that's going to be the plan in a lot of these games. We do have a couple Planeswalkers to tick up, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Nissa who shakes the world. These cards are pretty good when you're taking extra turns.
And don't forget, after you have played all of those cards that find the Time Walked a bunch of times, you then have that Twister to shuffle everything back
and just do it.
And just do it again.
Just do it over and over again. What are the matchups you're worried about if you're playing this blue-green deck? What are the decks you don't want to see across the table?
So, in normal circumstances, the deck that I'd be worried about is the mono-white aggro deck.
I was going to say it.
And that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. And then the mono-red deck, but I don't think the mono-red deck is present.
It's, again, a situation where either the mono-red aggro deck is not at this table or somebody was Galaxy Brain wheeling Sulphurous Vortex.
And Goblin Guide.
Yeah, so that's also a possibility. I agree. I think the aggro decks could be a little bit scary here. We don't have a lot of early game board presence in this deck. We did get that Sylvan Carriage on the wheel,
which
proving Justin and I to be the commentary scrubs we are.
Almost unfair to us for wheeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like it was the correct pick. But
we expounded so much. We spent so much time and energy explaining the virtue of that pick.
So Caleb wheels it with the 13th pick anyway. And here we are in the booth, and there's Caleb playing Magic. So,
mono white, mono red. A little bit, it'd be scary if we see them. What about a control deck? We do have some air in this deck. Ramp spells are great right until your ramp target gets countered. So if we have only a few cards that matter to resolve, are we going to be concerned about seeing some sort of deck that's going to be just playing removal spells, playing counter spells, and answering the few cards that are really threatening in this matchup?
I think no.
Yeah, you're not worried about that?
I really am not, because I think in this cube, it's difficult to play a control deck because decks, for the most part, are actively trying to win the game. And what I mean by that is...
It's a very proactive cube, I would say.
Well, and it is.
Yeah.
And not just in a combat sense, but you are always pushing forward to your end game. And control decks are saying, I'm running out of resources, and then I'll end the game however I
choose. I'm going to kill you with a Baleful Strix.
Exactly. Yes, truly. Or Snapcaster Mage.
Yep.
Flash something back. And in games like that, this deck, against control decks and against... I hate to say this, but most black decks are going to be trying to interact on the basis of interacting with your stuff as you're playing it. As we all know, you get a free card every turn during the draw step, and this deck is operating very highly on the live draw steps.
We're going to have a lot of powerful draws in this deck.
We got a lot of powerful draws.
In terms of card advantage, we saw the Muldrifter. Other ways to draw cards. We have, Portent for selection. I'm not sure what else we have to actually find what we need.
We do have Portent for
Jace,
selection.
Of course.
We have Jace, which is that I really think we probably haven't talked as much about how powerful Jace is going to be in this deck, because it's in a weird spot, right?
Yeah, it's not the prototypical Jace deck, I would say.
No. But the thing that I think that it provides the most is it is actually providing the most interaction of all of Caleb's cards.
Absolutely. It is the most disruptive card in the deck, I would say, by a pretty big margin. And it's the kind of disruptive card you get to free roll, because most of the time you're just going to be brainstorming with that over and over again. And then if you need to bounce something, if you're in a spot where you need that disruption, you get it.
Yeah. Caleb, I'm sure wishing that there were some more fetch lands to be had, but there weren't many that showed up.
Yeah, I mean, we passed on picking a couple because we knew we didn't have the fetchable to go get. And, that Flooded Strand looks a lot worse when you can't get green with it, which we did see that past in Pack 3.
So this here's an interesting question. Well, I guess it's not an interesting question because we have the Jace. If we didn't have Jace, would we even be playing that Verdant Catacombs to get a Forest?
I'm doing it, yeah.
Okay.
Here's my thing. There are so many ways to get value off of a shuffle. If you look through your entire pool and you're like, actually, there are no ways, then you probably don't play it.
But there's not many.
But I mean, the chances there is something in that deck that's going to matter. I can't summon the whole list off the top of my head, but It could be worth it.
We got a Portent. Maybe you don't want the third card.
Portent's perfect. That's a good example. I would probably play that with a Portent.
Yeah.
Get the card you want, shuffle away the 2 you don't.
Shuffle lands. Fetch lands are just so powerful that any tiny angles to take advantage of them because they're virtually free at the cost of 1 life and having 1 less basic land in your deck in this case.
I love them.
Yeah.
I run 2 cycles in my 360 card cube because I love them so much.
That is bold.
It's great.
It
makes the delve cards broken. You know, when you have 20
that
fetch
makes the
lands
delve
floating.
cards broken.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But outside of that, normally totally fine.
I see people disrespect a treasure cruise in a normal cube draft. I feel like they're like, I'm not going to be casting this for 1 mana, but it happens all the time when you got double fetches floating around.
Yeah, you don't have to cast treasure cruise for 1 for it to be good.
That's true.
You have the opportunity to cast it for 1, and then sometimes you cast it for 2 or 3, and it's still good.
I mean, drawing 3 cards. That's Magic players love to draw cards. That is a known fact.
So let's take a guess of what the rest of the players are drafting.
Ooh,
we have no information.
I mean, we have the information of the packs, the same amount of information that Caleb had when he was drafting. I think there's some questions here. We saw some A-B combos that I'm curious if they came together. We saw Tinker and Bolas the Citadel going around in those packs.
They did.
I think it's the most fun thing to tinker for. Is it the best thing to tinker for? Arguably.
Probably, yes.
I think it's up there. I mean, you might say that the best thing is just, get a Blightsteel Colossus and make your opponent answer or lose, but it's definitely more fun to cast a bunch of spells off the top of your deck.
Okay, so potentially Tinker with Bolas the Citadel. I do think that we have this white aggressive deck in the draft. We did not see many of those cards come around, and I think it's potentially that they could have been in the half of the...
Now, do we think that's J-Bro? I think if we're going to flag somebody as the mono-white drafter, it could very, very likely be J-Bro.
I think that the person that is going to try to metagame the draft the most would be John Brostoff.
Ooh, wait, you know what? It can't be J-Bro because we did see Thraben Inspector in pick 3, and you know that J-Bro's never passing Thraben Inspector.
He could have passed it for Thalia.
I guess. I've seen that man take Thraben Inspector over.
He will.
Ooh, boy, almost anything.
He will. He will aggressively defend it to a point where, feels weird. If we're all being honest.
It's quite a card. It's very interesting card that people have strong opinions about. So I think there's going to be one degenerate player. Maybe Sam Black is the one doing the most greedy thing at the table. I think that's not out of character for Sam's play style.
Max greed. I think Gavin is on the high tide.
You've got Gavin flagged for being the dirty boy.
Absolutely. Gavin's the dirty boy. Let's see. McDarby loves blue and red cards.
Okay.
It's very rare that he doesn't play blue and red cards.
I have a couple players like that in my play group. I know how that goes.
And I think that he's going to be playing...
If that's true, then we got 3 players on blue, at least we've already identified.
And I think that lines up with most Vintage Cube drafts where you have about 50% of the players in blue.
It turns out when you have 3-ish blue cards that are better than any other colored cards in the whole cube, the ties always break in the favor of blue, I would say.
3 cards that are better, so Time Walk and Social Recall Portent.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I was thinking Mana Drain probably in a cube like this, but
sure.
I think you can make arguments. There's a lot of good blue cards in there. I think Gwen, the creator of Cube Cobra, this is a very scary pod. I would be very intimidated to be in Gwen's seat. I'm not sure how experienced Gwen is playing here, but if I were Gwen, I'm going to be doing something nice and reliable.
Gwen, nothing to lose, buddy. No one expects anything of you, okay?
Oh, I have high expectations.
No one expects anything. This is... You go in there 2-1, king of the world, my friend, okay? And that's
or do this, 0-3, but take all the credit for nerfing your opposing team's decks so your teammates can both go, 3 wins and 2 wins and have a team win. All that matters is that your team wins.
Now, Gwen could have been acting as the black hole for the team and just hate drafting.
My deck is not a deck. I'm just taking the best card at every pack, regardless of color, regardless of strategy.
I'll present 40 eventually.
Now, I think one of the we should talk a little bit about hate drafting. Maybe we didn't really see Caleb hate drafting almost at all in this pack. We saw the tendrils get taken, but there was nothing in that pack for the deck. It was totally free. So it seems clear that Caleb does not really value the hate drafting element of team draft, or maybe in this case the pack just broke in such a way that each individual decision landed in favor of bolstering his deck rather than hurting his opponent's decks. I find when I team draft, especially in cubes where there are so many good cards floating around, I often don't know if I'm nerfing my opponent's deck or someone else on my team's deck. It's so hard to tell.
I think oftentimes you really need to have a read on what your teammates like to do.
A little bit of metagaming.
A little bit of... Look, the team draft is half metagaming already. You know.
Now, is that in the spirit of team draft? Maybe everybody should be sitting there with a big bag over their head. You know, you can't see who they are. It's anonymous. You don't know who's sitting where.
I think it's in the spirit of team drafting as long as there's no talk during the draft.
Oh, that's for sure. That's essential. You can't be talking during the draft.
Can't be talking during the draft. But if you can get on the same page before the draft, I think that's totally fine.
One of the most fun things about
because
team
you
drafting,
don't know what you're going to open.
It's true. One of the most fun things about team drafting, I think, is right now you get to deck build with your team. You get to talk about what your deck looks like, talk about things you pass maybe, figure out what your opponents might be on. If by process of elimination, say, well, we all saw that high tide and that time spiral going around. None of us got it, so we can assume one of our opponents has it.
I think that I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what. I know.
Justin Parnell rendered speechless.
I don't know what to expect from Caleb's deck. I think the ceiling is astronomical.
With a good draw, this deck is going to be kind of hard to beat. With a bad draw,
but on the other hand,
with a bad draw, it's going to be maybe a little bit glass cannon-y, I dare say.
A lot of air. We have a lot of sledgehammers, and I think we could be relying on those sledgehammers, but.
Here's an interesting question for you. Do you play more than the maybe generally accepted default of 17 lands? Do you play more lands in a fast bond deck?
That's so contextual based on the other ramp that you have.
It also depends on what you're cutting for it. It depends what you're playing that land over. But I think you're not unhappy to have a couple extra lands in your fast bond deck.
I would say in general, not. But I have in the past played more. Now, usually it's like 18.
Right.
When you're talking
you're not going to 20, 25.
The card that you're cutting isn't going to be like, this is my 23rd playable. It's going to be a component of your deck. Well, no, it's going to. I've already cut channel.
that was the first one.
I wouldn't have drafted channel. I wouldn't have drafted channel. I don't know if chat has that understood or that's clear yet. I know I've been on the fence about how I feel about channel, but I want to make it clear. Caleb is going to have it in his deck.
I don't think he's going to.
I think he's going to have it. He's going to be disappointed. I think that's the future that we're going to.
I don't think he's going to have it in his deck. I could see him siding into it depending on a given matchup. And it potentially, I mean, we're talking about this deck being a little bit of a glass cannon. Channel is the poster child of a glass cannon deck. In the right opening hand, it's pretty broken. You shouldn't be allowed to do that in Magic the Gathering. However, terrible top deck in a lot of situations. Terrible in some hands where you just don't have the right amount of colorless pips that you can actually spend that life on. It can be really challenging.
Well, I think that final predictions for this draft. How is it going to end?
I think Team Wisconsin is taking it, obviously. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Caleb, personally, 2-1 or 3-0. I like this deck. We got a lot of powerful cards, and Caleb is a very capable pilot. So I think 2-1 or 3-0.
Okay. Wow.
We also could be seeing some other glass cannon style decks. If that high tide is in someone's main deck, that time spiral is in someone's main deck, it's the kind of thing that we could end up seeing someone else's deck fizzle a little bit.
You know, I think that's a good point. He's not going to be the only one that's got some components that need to come together in the right way. That is the nature of Vintage Cube.
Yeah, most people are not sitting down at a Vintage Cube draft to draft a nice mid-range deck with a good curve. I mean, you can do it, but I would argue most people are not sitting down at a table trying to do that. And so it's entirely possible that we watch other glass cannons just explode on the battlefield.
That's absolutely true. I think that for Caleb, he's going to continue to be disappointed by channel. We're going to see an 0-3 and then a retirement for Magic Live on stream.
A bold proclamation.
Or it could be that, or I'm going to say 2-1. It's one of those two options.
I think 2-1's most likely. I just met Caleb today. I don't want him to 3-0, and then I'm over here saying he's going to 2-1. I look like some kind of jerk. They're not believing in him. We already talked so much trash about Sylvan Caryatid, so I'm giving benefit of the doubt.
Caleb knows what he's doing. In all seriousness, obviously one of the best cube drafters literally on the planet.
You can watch him do it hundreds of times on his Twitch stream.
And we are, I believe, going to see him in the first round because obviously we got to see how this works out. So any final thoughts before we go to break? Let these folks finish their deck building.
I just wonder how all these streamers are going to handle playing in paper. Are they going to be talking through their plays out loud, thinking they're talking to their audience? Are they going to fail to shuffle their cards and drop them all over the place like a big pratfall?
Mistriggers.
We'll find out.
Galore.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
All of a sudden, the computer's not keeping track for you. How are you going to do it?
We have the 3v3 team draft, Team Wizards of the Coast versus Team Wisconsin coming up right after this break. Stick around. We'll be back in just a minute.
Don't miss it.